We're back one last time for week 4 of the LJL Spring Split in 2021. We're heading into that second round robin, and that does mean we're going to start seeing, these teams finally coming towards their final positions in this table. V3 are coming into this match versus the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming at 5 and 2, while at the other side the Hawks are at 2 and 5, a mirror of each other's scores. And that does tell a lot of their fortunes, and I mean, from what we just saw in that last game, the Hawks, while they didn't play necessarily that bad, they were outplayed, and they seem to be a cut kind of below this middle pack, and it seems like V3 are a cut above Initialize. What are your takes on where these teams are currently standing in this league?
I think in some ways, I think that last game is going to feel really bad for the Hawks because I genuinely don't think they played badly. Dasher and Tussle actually played the early game pretty well. They both came out to 2-1-1. We're getting good leads in lane and the like. Zenit, great solo kill, was doing a lot of damage. Hell, there were team fights where both of that mid and AD carry were putting out 5k plus damage in fights, and it wasn't enough because of how the comps matched up. And I think that's going to be a real frustration because the play wasn't bad, but the comp difference was there. And some of the early trades put them in a difficult position for later in the game. The problem is now they're going up against a team who I reckon are better than the Jesters. And if you couldn't quite clean that one up against the middle of the pack team and you got a bit outdrafted where you had an opportunity maybe to pick up a win, I think you're looking down potentially another loss here. It'll be a 0-2 week for the Hawks, and that feels a bit sad because they didn't play that badly.
So, speaking of the Jesters and how the V3 are better than the Jesters according to Initialize, I think we'd mostly agree with that. V3 also lost to the Jesters too, and now we've just seen the Hawks do that in that game pass, so maybe there's a little bit more of a close tie there together, and actually maybe that puts Hawks in a bit of a better light, because if both of these teams can fall to that team, maybe they can be a little bit more even when they finally face off against each other. So I guess going over, I guess we'll talk about V3 in this case too, over to Lexi, because the two remaining members of this lineup from 2020, Ace and Reiner, had a very good game 1 when they did pull out the Rel, and they pulled out the Zoe, which is a champion which has seen less play than it was last year. But this team looked like they were on form from what we saw in summer 2020, where it just seemed like they understood their own win conditions in a game. How important is that these two players are retaining that kind of facet of this old V3 lineup?
Huge. I mean, we can double down on what Initialize just said and kind of the counterpoint around it. Rascal Jester V3 was a very close game.
Fun.
Part of the reason it was so close is because Ace, on his tried and tested set mid, he honestly, by the way, he might be the second best set mid in the region, obviously behind Aria, because
does he even play it? Who knows?
Probably, and he's probably better than all. So like, it's safe. Don't assume Arya is Jace the Mind Sculptor and he's just better than all. So just go with that. Hey, it's the great
That
song.
was a reference I wasn't expecting, but there we go. Not a League Jace, but the Magic Jace. There it is.
The legends of the multiverse do come around here, but I mean, Reiner has been honestly like the glue that has kept so much of this together, with Ace as well. This is a squad that has a lot of synergy built in, and members that have come in are either equals to or better than at the moment from their counterparts previously. Mujin is playing almost identically to what Boogie did. Kokog is arguably doing more than what Paz was doing, and
definitely more varied.
Yeah, and Hollow, he's not quite where Archer was, but it took Archer a full split to actually reach that critical power level. There's a good chance Hollow could reach that. On the opposite side for the Hawks, it's like, well, you've got some of the great names in great positions, and none of this cohesion is working together. It still feels like a solo queue team.
So let's wrap our minds back, just kind of go back to what happened in spring 2020, because V3 were a team, you're talking about Archer taking a little while to come online. So did Boogie, so did that whole team. Yeah. The fact that V3 are currently in second is, even though it's a step down from the summer 2020 V3 roster where they did end up winning that league, there's a lot to work and build off of if they do continue to improve from here. The Hawks finished dead last and looked very, almost out of hope from that spring split. And we're not saying that they're hopeless right now. We say that things to build on. The question for me now to you both is, because we've got to head into that pick and ban phase at some point, is there enough hope? Is there enough to build on for the Hawks to get your vote in this predictions. Initialize, you feeling it?
Nope. I think V3 are far too strong right now, and the Hawks have got some more things to work on before they can really threaten them.
And Lexi, going over to you, Mass Swan. The Hawks. They're not Swans, but the Hawks. Can you give them your vote?
Yeah, but the boy I got all my stock for has left team and gone to Axis, and I've got all my stock in Axis and Rascal Jester at the moment, so I don't have to be the Hawks' #1 fan anymore. Honey's no longer there, meaning that I'm going all in on V3 once again. I'll double down on them, and if it goes that way, the Hawks are going to have to pull a big victories over Super Week. They need to go at least 4-0 to make the rest of the week competitive, because if they lose this, bad times.
And myself asking, Nymera,
yes,
do you believe in the Hawks? This team which did so well at improving from spring to summer. Can they finally do it? No, they can't. It's V3. They're very, very good. I'm also voting for V3. And with all said and done, gonna head over to that pick and ban phase where it seems like the Hawks will have to climb up a veritable mountain to try and take this game away. Enjoy the game.
Thank you so much, Nymera. That's good to know. Of course, have got to call out, of course, that without Honey there to sweeten the deal, quite literally, Mass Swan no longer favors them. Neither do I. I've been saving that pun for far too long. Either way,
waiting for it. I love it.
It'll be V3 on the blue side, the Hawks on the red. Cog, Muujin, Ace, Hollow, and Rhino make up the V3 roster.
I'll be honest, Nymera had me for a split second. I thought maybe he'll pull the hot take, but I also remembered what the prediction sheet said, and then was like, oh, he's just throwing us through a loop here. He's throwing us through a loop. Over on the Hawks side, we got Apperman in the top lane, Tussle in the jungle, Dasher in the mid lane, Zenit and Corporal to round out the bot lane. Bans came in quick and fast. Set, Ace's set getting taken away, and then we're seeing the Renekton and Seraphine get taken away for the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, on the other side, it's a couple junglers away from Tussle, his two favorites, alongside the Aphelios. They don't want to give up. Bit of an interesting choice, but there have been some moments when Aphelios has really done work, and Zenit has got a bit of a name for himself on the champion. Either way, V3 will first pick the Udyr, which is no real surprise. But the answer is the Kai'Sa, which has done a lot of work into Udyrs of the past. I know we had some stats from production at one point that Kai'Sa does have a pretty good win rate into Udyr, if I remember correctly. It's locked in alongside the Gragas, and this has been a fairly standard opening first 3 picks from a number of games. The response might well be the Xayah, which I know Nymera quite likes into the Kai'Sa.
Absolutely. I mean, this Udyr, as we've already mentioned, is just a huge pick. I mean, honestly, in my eyes, once the Lilia and the Olaf are gone, Udyr is definitely just the best the best jungler in the game. You can make rivals for the others, but let's just keep going through. That Xayah coming through, Nymera, as you mentioned, loves it, and then we get the Rel combo, which we have seen work gorgeously together. Obviously, this Gragas that has been picked most likely will be going to Apperman. It can be still playing, obviously, for Tussle. It could also be played for Corporal in the support role, especially if this Hecarim comes in. It's definitely only going 2 ways from there, but Hecarim is an interesting one, Initialize. And what is your opinion on the matchup versus Udyr?
You definitely have options in that you farm relatively well, you get more damage, you're still pretty tanky, he doesn't necessarily want to stun you, and you have got ways to get through him with your ultimate, with your devastating charge. Like, he can stun you in place for a bit, but not for that long. It's a bit of a wash, but you do have ways to really run at the Xayah, who needs to be very on point with her feathers or her ultimate, or you can run at her very quickly. And when you've got a Gragas as well, that's a fair amount of AD carry access.
Yeah, some engage access. This Xayah ultimate is probably going to be very important. These bans coming through already. Alistair by V3 and Gnar coming through with the Scion. Double target over to Cogcog, and Cogcog is seeing 3 target bans from the Hawks. Apperman asking for help. Can we get some help in this top lane? I don't feel comfortable against this monster for V3, and he well and truly is a monster at the moment. Cogcog has been defining the top lane meta along with Ebby at the moment.
The problem is in that last game as well, for all that a lot of the Hawks played quite well, Apperman got really, really put under the bus after the initial dive, and then the Scion just was not an option for him. See what they go towards here. A little stat from production as well that does call out that Xayah has been doing very well into Hecarim this split. Of course, Hecarim runs at you and he'll run straight through the feathers, which is exactly what Xayah wants. So I think it's up to 70% win rate versus the champion right now, which is quite impressive, all things said and done. The Hawks did go towards the Orianna in mid, which you can throw on that Hecarim. It's a nice little combo, leaving that last pick for App in the top lane. But V3 say, yeah, okay, what are you going to pick into Camille? They left that pick open, and it is a very, very strong pick in the top lane right now.
No way.
I think that would be a very bold pick to go towards in the mid lane.
Please.
And they're thinking perhaps about the Karma mid for Ace. I know Lexi's been asking for this from the guy for a long time. Might be locked in, but you know what you say about hovers. It's been proven wrong before, and instead it will be Ace's Galio, which is also genuinely superb. It's paired up with the Camille. It's paired up with an Udyr. That is a lot of lockdown CC where you just jump on a target and delete them before anybody else gets to turn up.
I went through an absolute roller coaster there of emotions just with those hovers. I shouldn't get myself so hopeful. The Karma would have been beautiful for this composition. The side of V3, make everybody go fast, prevent anybody. Rel can run into the middle. Udyr is even faster. It would have been great, but sadly, we're getting this Galio, and let's be real, as you mentioned, Initialize, this is a tried and tested. This was one of his most defining champions, really, especially throughout summer. Did beautiful things, but he is also 4-0 on this Karma all time. So when he pulls out, he wants the victories, and it's pulled out for big spots. And he's also 6-3 on this Galio, and 2 of those losses are when he was playing at Worlds. So it's fair to give him a bit of forgiveness, because those were some tougher games.
I do have to apologize a little here as well. I was thinking, last pick for Appman. I forgot the Gragas was on the board, which of course will be going towards that top lane. And that's not bad into the Camille, because you can knock her out of the ultimate. So you do have some ways to survive that lane, even if, of course, Camille is just very strong right now. That meant the last pick was, of course, the Rakan for Corporal, who did make some great picks early on at that champion. You can't forget that. It just wasn't enough, which we said. So
Corporal was landing it. It just, the team couldn't follow up on it. So you can't really be mad at Corporal. He did his job.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, honestly, there was as we said, the Hawks played badly. It was just slight comp difference, and also certain players getting really put in the dumpster. And Appaman will also be in a difficult position this game between an Udyr, a Galio, and a Camille, all looking to try and dive him early on. Could get a little bit scary for him, and I'll have to see whether he can survive. On the other side, though, Zenit put some great stats up on that Kai'Sa. Corporal's Rakan is very famous for him. Have to see how it plays out in game, of course, and I feel like V3 have got themselves a very good sort of comp identity, and it's not like the Hawks don't either. It's a good 5v5. Kai'Sa and the Hecarim dive in alongside the Rakan. You throw a Shockwave, you throw an explosive barrel, and you've got some decent wombo combo there. I just worry that if they come to the 5v5 and Camille has already got herself up 3 kills because they can play the side lanes a bit better, it could get a bit scary for the side of the Hawks.
I mean, V3 have the tried and tested Camille Galio combo, so you just you ult into ult. It's very easy. You can't leave there, especially with a bear stun coming over the top with a Rel ult as well. There's so much lockup from the side of V3. They can set up for Galio beautifully in multiple different angles and spots. That's the great part, and that's part of how intelligent V3 are when it comes to these drafts. They find multiple ways, and they find multiple different utilities together to combine everything. Over on the side of the Hawks, it's a bit of a mismatch again. I will be honest. I do like the side of where they're like, okay, let's do Hecarim Orianna. That's a good combo. I like that as a combo. Gragas kind of works well. You can put the ball onto Gragas, let him run in, body slam into the middle, Shockwave, and then maybe try an explosive casket back in.
Shockwave,
Yeah, there's a lot of options there. The thing is, Rakan doesn't quite want to work with the other half. He wants to work with the Orianna, wants to work with the Hecarim. Gragas can really mess it up if the communication doesn't work there. And the Kai'Sa wants to dive in. But this isn't really a dive comp. This is kind of a comp that wants to go in and then back out a little bit and then go in a second time around. Whereas V3 just want to have one big team fight and go for it. I favor V3 pretty heavily in this pick and ban phase.
Yeah, I apologize for saying, Rel plus Orianna, great combo. Like, it is, but that's not what the combo is. It's Rel, it's Orianna plus Rakan. Well, in fairness, Orianna Rakan is a very good ball delivery system, as is the Hecarim. Like, the team fight is really there. Again, my issue kind of is it's not like it's not there for V3 either. And I think they can play the side lanes particularly around this Camille, very, very well. Ace is a fantastic Galio. He's 6-3 all time. 2 of those losses being at Worlds, so that's against very tough
It's
competition.
Unicorns of Love, who are having the most dominant split they've ever had, I
Yeah,
think,
sure.
in the region. So, like,
Yeah, they did
fair
very
is
well.
fair. Yeah.
Exactly. And, as well, Cog has been performing exceptionally well in the top lane this split, has been a large part of V3's wins, and hell, has nearly won them games even when they've lost. I'm definitely recalling their loss to DFM when his Jace was doing absurd amounts of damage. Problem is for me that Alphaman hasn't really been playing weak side all that well thus far for the Hawks, and that's not an easy combo for him to be trying to play weak side against either.
And that is something I've also noticed. I'm wondering how much did Blank make up for Appaman when he was playing on that original roster of Sengoku? Blitzcrank agrees with me
Okay,
as well.
let's, yep, he's there.
Pretty hard as well for him.
Well, yes, Udyr, Rel, Camille, all fairly high priority picks. They've done pretty well getting a hold of those.
Yeah, Ace's Galio specifically as well. And they're like, well, there's no reason why this team shouldn't be looking great.
Look, all I'm saying is I'm aware that Blitzcrank is a bit biased because Reiner actually plays Blitzcrank. And I know summoners are dead, but there's a little bit of like, throwing a line out to your man there. I think there's a little bias going on.
I mean, maybe he just understands how the greatest analysts that I am at the moment in the predictions table at the moment. Appaman getting chunked down already, and that's just a level advantage. And this is just what V3 do. Oh my god.
Dash is in trouble. The Justice Punch hits flat out. Now Dasher trying to run away does get out. It's a flash for flash, but Dasher taken very, very low. Couldn't quite get enough damage down onto Dasher. Did have enough HP to get out. But that was so well played from Ace. Got the Justice Punch into the taunt really cleanly there.
Yeah, and there's actually kill potential on this Galio if Dasher doesn't play correctly. He is quickly potting up, using all his pots, using that biscuit as well. But if he doesn't keep himself safe, there is a chance that Ace can flash taunt. And just with the assistance of Muujin coming in from down under or up above, depending on which side of the map he's coming in, he'll do it. Right now, he's taking a huge bit of poke here, though.
He does. Corporal goes straight back with a well-placed Blade Caller, though. So it's both supports taken pretty low. But they've got pots in inventory to heal their way back up, and no summoners have been popped. It is worth pointing out, though, that Zenit is running Cleanse, not the heal. So Corporal has to be a little more aware of his health bar, but it is a little harder to get on top of this Kai'Sa in this game.
Yeah, and there's also the Ignite out there for Reiner, so they're interested in finding a kill if they're given the opportunity. Obviously, Rel is incredibly tanky. What is also very interesting to know, thank you, over to production. That's Nymera in the booth at the moment. Rakan has a 3-9 win rate versus Camille. That's pretty bad. And that I was mentioning, obviously, I don't know why this Rakan is getting picked. It doesn't really work with the rest of the team. They've got a bit of a disjointed team comp. The Gragas doesn't really work here. Honestly, if you asked me, I would have preferred to see the Gragas just go into the support role, just give up the pick. Corporal just has to be the perennial lamb and said, okay, feed him to the wolves, get a preferred matchup that outscales this Camille in the top lane, and let's also get something that works with the Hecarim, that works with the Orianna, that works also with the Kai'Sa. You can put a ball on a Kai'Sa if she's able to get into the middle and do a shockwave that way. It works. It's not what you normally do. Rakan just doesn't do much here, and it gets even worse when we start talking about Rel as well, because he hasn't got a positive win rate there, and overall, Rakan normally has a positive win rate, but this matchup against the Rel, against the Camille, is negative.
We might have to talk about negative gaming issues here as Appaman might be in trouble. Muujin is waiting to come in behind. Look for the hook shot. Does it land? It does! The bear slap is there as well. They're stepping in front to force Appaman into a difficult position. The tactical sweep comes across, and it is Muujin on the Udyr that picks up first blood. We said Appaman has been a point of pressure before. The combo was there in the top lane. It goes over early on, and the Hawks fans have got to hope this isn't the signs of things to come.
That's just horribly done. The reason I started counting out the moment Muujin did the bear slap is you have to go 3, 2, one. It's about 3.5 seconds, and then the slap is up again. The problem is, he was so far gone, and the CC chain that happened, they didn't even need the second bear slap. But hilariously, they literally could have gotten the second bear slap and won with it. They didn't need it, and now Mugen is going to try and flex on everybody on this rift because they've got a Dark Steel.
Of course, you've got to remember that Phoenix Dance actually has a fairly good AP ratio, and it's nice healing and stuff.
So
on the
good.
likes of it. So it's not a bad early pickup. It gives you a little bit more damage than perhaps you would otherwise, and for the cheapness of it, you get a lot out of your bots from it. You get to flex on your opponents. That's all good news, and you know, it's a good start for V3. We've got off to a start in the lane that we kind of expected to do so. They'll move over to the Dragon. I don't think there's going to be much contest here from the Hawks, though. Tussle is on this side of the map, but I don't think he'll be able to poke his head in time.
Yeah, I think he's just going to pop that and go, it's already down to 100. There's no 1,000 rather. There's no 100. It's already gone. It's 1,000. I can't really contest. I guess I'll just find out which way these junglers might go. Try and put a Think Ward down, and Mugen's like, I need to go back, really. I haven't got much health or much mana. I just did that. Actually, he's full health now. Jesus, Udyr just heals up by just doing a few things, and he's already max health. But look at this top lane. Cog is pretty confidently just walking over Apperman. Yes, they're even in CS, but Gragas is meant to be way further ahead at the moment. Gragas pre-6 is meant to absolutely dominate Camille, and then once Camille gets the kill potential with 6, Gragas has to start playing a bit safe. And now Coco's already just making these huge trades, and this is not where they need to be. This is also a grasp. Gragas, not a Comet one, so he went all in on the idea that he's probably not going to overtake this game. And yeah, Apperman, it's not gone.
Is in trouble there. Takes a big shockwave, but his Justice Punch interrupted. The dissonance means it's a solo kill for Dasher. So well played in the mid lane there from the Hawks mid lane.
Yikes, Dasher, we've been asking for some big plays, and I guess you've just decided, well, if my team's not going to find it for me, I'll find everything and anything. Well played over to you, killing our world's representative of Ace in that 1v1. And the reason I keep saying that world's representative thing is because it's not DFM for once, ladies and gentlemen. So we have to keep mentioning it when it hits anybody but DFM.
Absolutely, and Dasher there interrupted the Justice Punch. It was so clean with the shockwave. Pulls him back, puts him in a low HP bar. He was trying to get out and teleport back, and he was looking for the reset, and Dasher punishes it accordingly. Gets him about a 10 CS lead as well, because the wave got lost, and that puts the Hawks up to just a slight gold lead here. Various trading across the points of pressure in the map. It'll be Dasher slightly ahead of Ace, and it'll be Cog slightly ahead of Apperman, you imagine. The Rift Herald is being started up by V3, though, who aren't too daunted by that mistake in mid lane.
No, but because of how quick Galio is able to clear this Ace on this Galio, it forces the teleportation back out of Dasher. So he didn't get to hold that because the wave clear is just too strong. They decide to allow so many members of V3. And actually, the Hawks had already decided, we're giving up this Herald. We're not going to fight over it. V3 are far too prepared. Their lanes are in better spots. We're just going to have to accept, even with getting that kill in mid lane, they weren't able to get the priority there. So even though they did find an avenue into this, and they currently have a few hundred gold lead, that's just standing there at the moment. It's just for us to think, they're kind of equal. They're not. They're actually dead on equal, because these two teams at this point in time can't do anything. Dasher just also secured his third solo kill of the split initialize. This man is trying.
Like, he is, and you've seen there's been like some moments for Dash where he's really popped off in lane or in some of these skirmishes. But as we said, it's sometimes been a team communication issue or a comp difference issue. This time out, I think the comps both have ways to win, but V3 probably have their ways in that silence we've kind of been talking about. And right now it's pretty even. Yeah, Tussle gonna be getting a hold of that Scuttle Crab at least, but now he's got to try and find his way out. Onslaught of Shadows comes through, had to get away from Cog, who would have been a Hex Tech ultimatum him into a box and not allowed to get out. But Mugen flashed for the smite and didn't get it. So that'll be the summoner down. They were looking for a bit of a scuffle there. And instead, the summoner down, no flash bear slaps for at least a couple more minutes.
That's the second time that's been used, and what's important is Dasher's flash is now back up. He didn't get punished on a second gank. He actually was able to get a kill onto Ace the moment that flash came up. So far, Dasher has been playing phenomenally. Did get caught out one time, but then very quickly didn't have to pay for his sins. Was able to keep himself healthy, didn't get caught out, and Mugen is now hunting for Apperman in this top lane.
He is. Appleman has got to be a little afraid. Looking for the lane gank is Cog. There is still the explosive cask available for Appleman, so he can try and get this out. There's the stun. Looking for potentially the Hextech ultimatum not used. Reiner now in trouble, trying to clear words out in his own jungle. In goes the Grand Engine quickness, and Reiner falls down to Zenit. In the top side, though, the Hawks of V3 try to get onto Appleman, but he does manage to disengage with the explosive cask. There is the Herald in inventory, though, and that will probably mean this top lane is under a lot of pressure. Mujin stepping forward, trying to prevent Appleman from being able to back and reset as easy as you'd like. Hollow now in a spot of bother, does trade onto Corporal, but Tussle is around. Could maybe think about engaging on that, but decides against it. Doesn't have the onslaught of shadows, and all the while that top lane goes well. They get the 3 plates by hand. The Rift Herald will claim the last 2 with its true damage, and first turret. All plates go the way of Mujin and Cog, super accelerating the Camille, which is an alarm bell in the minds of all Hawks players.
It looks to be a second push is going to be made by that Rift Herald in top lane from the looks of the minimap. And it seems like V3 had already conditioned themselves to say, hey, it's fine. We already got one of the we got the first dragon. We can give them the second one. Let's triple stack this third one. We already got top turret. We threw so much gold into Cog and Mujin. These 2 players are going to be so much far ahead and actually accelerated to the point that we're already seeing Camille come out and she's got her first item, which is going to be that Divine Sundra. So, and now Mujin also getting the oh god no, the name popped in and then disappeared. It's the Chem Tank.
It's not Hextech Chem Tank.
No, it's not Hextech. I think
it's the Turbo
Chem Tank.
Yeah, it's a Turbo Chem Tank. Yes.
It's so fast. It's gone turbo mode. Of course. How could I forget that? It's V3. Of course. It's Turbo Star. Don't know what that is. I just made it up.
The gold still, despite first and all those plates going over, is still actually pretty even because, of course, the Hawks did get the kill on Terrell at the same time, and Dasher is doing very well in this lane, as honestly as Zenit. 20 CS up, but for both of these guys. Of course, Hollow had to back away from that bot side tower with the way things went in the bottom jungle. Zenit's going to get a third plate down here. And looking all right on the bot side of the map for the Hawks, even if the top side is in a difficult position. But we kind of somewhat expected that from draft.
Yeah, we did. And what's important to note is the gold is dead on even. So while while V3 have thrown a lot of damage or insurance and gold into the top side of the map, mid lane has been kind of left. And this is a Galio. This is not unfamiliar territory for Ace. He is about 2 kills down if you just look in the CS department. He's at 106, 136 over to the side. And I've mentioned that 14 gold number and experience. He might have been around for the experience, but he hasn't got that 2 killed in gold, which basically Dasher has over him on this side. And the exact same is being said about Hollow and Zenit. He's only about a kill's worth of gold down, almost 2 now at the moment. Once he clears this wave, he'll be in a better spot. But that is another point. They will need Camille and they will need Mujin at least to assist them. The problem is, this is a Camille. You want a split push.
And it might be looking like a dive here for the Hawks, who are all gathered around. They would love to find someone out of position here, but some safe play from V3 puts that thought away from them. Galio gets a shove in mid, and the Hawks back away from that. Look at a dive.
Yeah, and a lot of time wasted there. At this time, Tussle could have been clearing his jungle. Dasher ended up missing only 1 CS, but still, that's an extra minion of experience. That's a thing of gold. You've got ahead. Yes, I know you've got that, but why not just keep the tempo going, keep the pressure going, because this is how you, as the Hawks, can stay in this game and actually pull it to a lead. At the moment, you're equal at the moment, and that's something they might not be aware of. They might be thinking, hey, we're probably actually ahead of the guys at the moment, even without us getting those 5 turret platings, because we've got so much down in that bot side, 1 in the mid. We should be fine, right? Actually, no, you're dead on even, and when you have to fight Mujin and Cog specifically, you might have some issues.
Yeah, and I think at this point it's important we do a little bit of housekeeping, because you can see where the plates are. It's 4 to 5, but the top lane turret did go down for first blood. Divine Sundra is in for Cog alongside that we mentioned for Udit. It's Essence Reaver first for Xayah, which is Deja Vu. We've explained that one before. It's a nice little Spellblade passive. You can go from that into the likes of your Gale Force probably for her. But on the other side, it's the Kraken Slayer complete for Hollow. It's a Trinity Force in for Tussle. He's feeling pretty happy. But Hawks will trade the bot side turret for the second Rift Herald critically, actually, for V3, who might now try to use it in mid lane with all the wave pressure they've got. But I think with Appermen roaming down and Tussle hovering around the backside of this, might not be something they decide to go for. Muujin up a lot of gold here, actually, over Tussle because of the kills he's been involved in. But you can see it's traded back in the mid and AD carry position for the Hawks. Dasher and Zenit having another good game, actually.
Yeah, so Galio is one of these champions we've already talked about, especially a lot in season 10, that he is a champion that can kind of get away with a bit less gold because of how important his taunt is, how big the hero's entrance is. This is a champion which can fall behind. We saw this previously. It's going to be a rocket belt, I assume, built for Ace. So
Looks like it.
will be interesting to see how we go. Obviously, it's frustrating that Hollow has fallen behind, but he is on a champion who loves to scale into this game. And honestly, in my opinion, Xayah outscales Kai'Sa in the late game. When we get to that late game point, the amount of utility that we will see from this Xayah is going to be doing equal to, if not more damage than Kai'Sa. It's pretty skill intensive, and these are two of our very skillful bot laners, so I'm expecting some fancy footwork to come out from both of them. But what's worth also noting is the ultimate that Xayah has, the ability to avoid a shockwave, the ability to avoid a Rakan, the ability to avoid so much that Hecarim ult, that Gragas ult, reposition, feathers fly, and then pull back and maybe catch somebody. That could be death for any member on the Hawks.
We'll have to see whether you're proved right, because of course the Mountain Drake is live, and both of these squads would love to get a hold of it. It's about a 500 to 600 gold lead for the Hawks right now, so a slim lead, but a lead nonetheless. But that might all change in the next few moments as this Drake setup begins. Appleman is looking for a flank, but he will end up walking across Vision in a moment or two. There is still the Herald in Muujin's inventory, which could be used as that counterweight to buy pressure and priority in mid lane. Corporal and Dasher on Vision here right now, as is Apperman. He's got to body slam his way over the wall. Hawks desperately trying to contest for that Vision. It's not been the easiest job. Corporal still on Vision, on that ward, and doesn't seem to have a way to get rid of it right now. And V3 know exactly what's going on right now. They finally get a chance to sweep it and get a hold of it. Cog is also on Vision. That feels like it's been a problem for both these top laners over the last few moments. And Dragon now being started up by V3.
Yeah, V3 didn't push that wave in, but now they're getting the Dragon. And the side of the Hawks, they need to find an angle in. There's nowhere good way. And this Dragon's
flash in from Apperman does get a hold of one, but it doesn't get the cask back. In goes Ace trying to buy time. They're onto the backline. Dasher now in trouble. The shockwave gets interrupted. He goes down. Corporal follows. And Reiner and Cog hold Tussle in place. The horse is crushed. And the bot side of that fight. And that is a massive team fight win for V3. It looked good for Apperman for a moment, but he couldn't get the cask back. And everything falls apart from there.
Was beautifully played by the side of V3, and this is something I mentioned in the pick and ban phase, the fact that V3 have so many different ways to engage, disengage, re-engage. They don't have to commit like, say, the side of the Hawks have to do, and this is something that makes it work. They're able to push in this mid lane. I love the fact that they use the Rift Herald. They're just like, hey, throw this out here, push this in. Apperman gets a great engage, but look at Rydell, he's in the back of them, gets a double stun, and then the side of V3 go, hey, let's engage when it's convenient for us. Hero's entrance comes in, and now the Hawks are divided. There's like two fights happening. Zenit's on the middle of nowhere, not able to help anybody. And then Camille Ultimate comes down and goes, hey, Tussle, you're locked in. We've already killed 3 of your other members. You can't do anything about this. And that's what I was meaning when I said V3 have the opportunity to pick and choose when they want to fight. The fact that they already now have control of the map and they've now got a 2k gold lead is the worst spot for the Hawks. They needed to find opportunities ahead. They had the lead going in. They came into this fight 500 gold ahead and with a Dragon as well. They were equal and looking for opportunities. This is V3 feeling very confident, and boy, do they look it.
Oh, and it was so frustrating because Apperman got onto Cog, but the CC
so
wasn't layered quite right. Merktread saved Cog's life. He got to flash away. It meant the onslaught of Shadows missed. It meant the explosive Caspers. And you missed those two key teamfight ultimates. You have your front line disappear, and Reiner gets to turn around and dive into the backline, and their ultimates hit for V3. And Dasher got dived on, couldn't really find the shockwave he was looking for, and there you have it. It's about a 2,000 gold lead for V3 now. And yes, Dasher still very ahead in XP, got a lot of CS. He was about 50 CS ahead before that fight, out of interest, guys. But it's not necessarily enough right now. And as this game progresses, the 4-1, this Camille in the side lane is going to become increasingly difficult to deal with. And if you're losing team fights like that, then it gets even harder for the side of the Hawks.
Hilariously, this is a spot that Ace is all too familiar with. The fact that he's second in the experience level is not is new territory, and there's actually very promising territory for this mid laner. Think about it.
Sure.
A common complaint that we had around Ace is, okay, you're losing a lot of this farm. This isn't good, mate. You need to be finding opportunities into the game. These are not great
Oh,
spots. Oh,
Atman.
Mugen. Oh my.
Oh, he walks away from the explosive cask, throws up the Teemo, thumbs up, but that's about it. And this is the problem with Udyr. If you have to use an ult to disengage him, Udyr is happy because all he had to do was wait on a 3-second cooldown. That is a win for Udyr, and it's always the problem with when you're trying to build comps to disengage Udyr. It cannot be on the back of ultimates that you have to disengage him because he will take that ultimate trade for him running at you every day of the week.
What's worth note is Apperman's only just got his turbo chem tank at this point in time. Mugen has been further ahead than the top laner of the Hawks.
Sure.
This is an awful spot. And the fact that Kolkog in that previous fight was the person they engaged on and was able to disengage and then immediately re-engage and the fight, this is just so bad for the Hawks. Gale Force now coming in over for this Xayah, and that's even worse. Now she has an extra flash, a dash, a bit of movement, disengage, re-engage if you are feeling a bit spicy, which we saw Hollow last time when he had that Gale Force, was definitely feeling spicy when he picked up that double kill.
Yeah. Look, V3 are in a good position, but let's not pretend the Hawks don't have their own ways into this game. Yeah, Appman's a little late to the Turbo Chem tank, but that's because he stopped off for a Bramble Vest and a Tear and a few other bits on the way, which were all useful and necessary items for this guy. But look on the other side, like, Kaiser's at 2 items, up a fair amount of CS. We've already mentioned that Dash has had actually a very strong early game and laning phase, so there is absolutely enough damage for them to blow up the right people, but they need to get onto Hollow. They need to potentially deal with Cog. That could prove difficult, especially if they're losing vision control, as they have been over the last couple Dragon fights. All the while, though, V3 is saying, or Hawks rather, are saying, well, maybe you can do that, but instead we'll threaten Baron and make sure we get control over this area instead. And see whether that forces you into a bit of a difficult spot in trade.
15 seconds on this Dragon, and both these two teams are going to definitely want it. Obviously, for V3, this would represent and threaten Soul, so they can find a pick before this Dragon comes up. They'll definitely go for it. Ace did try there, went in with the Rocket Belt, but wasn't able to find the taunt as well. So just able to disengage. And hey, the Rocket Belt's already halfway down on its cooldown, so he'll have it up whenever he really feels like it. It looks like the side of the Hawks are just going to have to kind of give this up.
They are going to give up the Drake, or at least have Cog going solo it off vision. They don't have any way of getting into that pit very easily. Corporal, though, is on a bit of a flanking mission here, and the Hawks have started the Baron, going to try and force a teleporter and engage, and Corporal has got a great angle if he is quick.
Cog has TP, so it's not perfect for the Hawks if they do
he's been
get
spotted.
this.
Yeah, he's been spotted off the side, and Cog still not feeling forced to come over. They have to pull off the Baron, and it was a nice idea from the Hawks, but they get nothing for it. They put themselves down Soul Point, which V3 pick up for free. They've got priority in mid, and Corporal's nearly nice flank doesn't quite work out, and that feels like it's been the story of these last few games. Some nice ideas, some nearlies for the Hawks. And the problem is those nearlies are still leading to big disadvantages because they're going to lose a mid-tier 2 off that play as well. Now they are down 4,000 gold. Now they are down 3 Drakes. And I'm not sure that the Hawks are coming up with the right ideas because their vision game has been a bit suspect, this one, Lexi.
It really has been, and a huge problem for them in that spot was the fact that the Hawks never had any vision of Cog. They had a feeling, and they can suspect with almost perfect doubt, with no doubt in their mind, that he is most likely doing that Dragon. But they don't know, and they had no idea of, and they had no vision in their upper jungle, where their red side jungle is, where the red is. They had no vision around there. So at any moment, if they ever felt threatened, and the moment that Corporal was seen on vision, they knew, okay, guys, we have to call off this play. We can't do anything about this. We don't know where Cog is. There's a good chance he's doing this Dragon, but if he's not, and we keep doing this, he could pop over this wall and just absolutely wreck us all with that Galio combo, with the Camille combo. It could have gone so much badly. They have to pull off. Thankfully, nobody dies for the Hawks, but then they gave over the Dragon, and let's be real here, Initialize. The fact that Hollow is now equal with Zenit is honestly pretty depressing for the Hawks.
That's 3 extra turrets for you. That's evened up the discrepancy there. And also credit as well to V3 the way they had wards kind of on where Corporal was looking for the flank, even though they had spent a lot of their time setting up vision control around the Dragon Pit at the same time, is credit to V3 and a real frustration for the Hawks. They tried to trade on the other side of the map for where the V3 hadn't set up vision control and still couldn't get enough of that said vision control to force the engage, force Cog to come to them, get Corporal on a good flank. And this gold lead has kind of been slowly increasing over the last 10 or so minutes since that last blowout fight. And the Hawks really need to look for a fight, look for vision control to try and get their combo together, or they're in danger of falling too far behind. That their wombo combo is a combo, but it certainly isn't wombo.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to be really important. The Hawks absolutely have avenues back into this game, and they will have to fight around this next dragon. They cannot let V3 get this soul, because this will put multiple members of V3 into just territory where you can't kill anybody. It'll make Hollow a little tankier. That's really nice for them. But the other members, specifically this Rel, this Galio, and this Udia, will become unkillable monsters, putting out huge damage, but also just being incredibly tanky to a point where you can't kill any of them. Think of the items that we've currently got built over on the side of V3, and the fact that Zhonya's is getting even more scaling added to it because of these mountain drakes. V3 are not going to go for anything risky. They are not going to look at this Baron. They want to control vision, absolutely, but they don't have to risk anything. They can wait for this last dragon to come up and go, hey, come into us. We can disengage, then re-engage. We've done this perfectly in the last 2 fights. And you guys, guess what? When you were trying to play that Baron, we played as if Cog was there. They were playing as if their Camille was around at any corner and that they were waiting to pounce onto the side of the Hawks, as opposed to playing like a lot of other teams that we have seen, where they start to play a little defensively and reveal their hand, but Mujin has already gone in as he's popped out.
He's very fast indeed. All the while, though, V3, you could see it was Ace up in the top lane, shoving that wave in. It was Cog in the bottom, and just the 1-3-1 setup, the vision control they have is letting them really control the map, and the Hawks are kind of being forced to play the way V3 want rather than the way they want. The Baron is now being started up. It's down to about half HP. Ace is gatekeeping one side. Reiner the other. Mujin is tanky enough to two-man this with the side of his AD carry. Ace gets knocked up and has taken next to no damage already. Zedek gets pulled back in by the Hextech ultimatum. The feathers come flying out. Tussle goes down. In goes Ace for a little bit more damage, but Corporal staying alive on the other side. The cast comes out, but it is being poured out for the death of the bar contender himself. Ace goes back in, finds a big punch, looking for a little bit more damage. Out goes the recall, in comes the TP back, and now the Hawks are caught on the wrong side of the wall, trying to get back in. Cog finds a tactical sweep, goes back in, and it's a massive fight, 2 for Hollow at the end of it. Dasher now being run down. Mujin, with his Phoenix stance, empowered by, of course, that Dark Seal, finds the clean ace for V3. So well played by this squad.
The Hawks just blind went in without any vision into their own jungle when it's painfully obvious that V3 are trying to bait them into this is just criminal. It's honestly criminal that they're just face blanking going, hey, looks like Ace is here on his own. Of course he's not here on his own. Look at this. Reiner already connected. Bang. 4-man stun there. Camille knows they can come over. They have perfect vision, and they know they're also preventing the side of the Hawks really engaging. It takes Dasher so long to come back around. He does get that shockwave onto Reiner, but it's onto Reiner. He's the tank. He doesn't care. And the fact that they're able to have Cog recall, immediately teleport back in. This fight's already over. They're goating the ace. Cog can run immediately around, and Mujin this whole time is just going around going, hey, if anybody tries to escape like Dasher, they're already dead. I'm almost a little bit flabbergasted, but we're in another one.
We're out of the replay into another scuffle because it's Mountain Soul Point that is online for the Hawks. They are 10-2. They're up 8,000 gold. They don't need this fight, but they could certainly look for it. This would be Soul, and the Hawks are in a desperate position. Corporal is on a good flank position, though, and that might be the option they need. Dragon down to half. Look for the Oriana ball. Look for Corporal going in. The quickness is popped. He's onto the backside. The shockwave is good. So is the Onslaught of Shadows, but there's just not enough damage. It's too late. The wallets are too big. Cog in the backside of the fight finds a triple kill. Make that, I think, a quadra, actually. Good lord. Cog finds the fight that's looking for it. That will be game for V3.
Absolutely well played by the side of V3. We mentioned that in pick and ban phase that this comp looked to be doing so many different things. The fact that V3 are playing this composition so flawlessly, so effortlessly, and so perpetually strong that the momentum of this game, just when they got an inch, they win a mile. Well played to V3 as they knock down these turrets.
Mid-game vision control and target access from a Camille, a Rel, a Galio, Hell and Udyr as well made the Hawks mid-game such a struggle. V3 come up with a commanding victory in this one around 30 minutes in.
Well played over to them. Every member of V3 looked very strong in this game, while it felt like, okay, Ace is taking a bit of a delay in the mid, and as it was bot lane, it was all part of the plan, but there's too much to talk about Initialize.
There really is, and to break that all down, of course, we have an analyst desk coming up just after this break, so don't go anywhere, and be back around. We'll tell you how it all played out in detail.
One last time we saw the LJL teams take to the Rift in week 4 of LJL Spring 2021. And in this game, it was V3 taking a commanding win to give them a commanding lead over most of the LJL teams at the top of the pack. Only just behind, of course, are overlords of DFM, although with them dropping their first win, they are not quite as untouchable as they were before, and unfortunately leaves the Hawks to their 0-2 week, now tied last with Burning Core at the bottom of the table. It didn't start badly for them, though. Their early game was decent, I think it's fair to say. Initialize, what did you make of the Hawks and how at least they seemed to join this game on the front foot?
Like, once again, we had the mid and AD carry, Zenit and Dasher, actually having very strong laning phases. Dasher gets a solo kill on Aces, up 50 CS. There's a similar 20 CS lead on the bot side, and they get a pick onto the rel in her own jungle clearing vision. Like, that is good news. So the early game, at least there was some bright spots. There's some good laning strength here, even if Appman was kind of being put a little behind. He kept evenish in CS, but it was still a problem.
It was a problem, and one of the big problems for the Hawks and one of the big boons for V3 was the fact that Cog was very much in the game. There was no pressure around that top side from the side of the Hawks, and this Camille versus Gragas, and Gragas can very much stand up in that matchup. There are ways you can trade well pre-6, as you were saying on cast, Lexi. Cog ended up getting, well, very even in this early game and eventually quite accelerated.
Yeah, hugely accelerated versus this Gragas. And Apperman looked a little bit frail, was missing some certain trades that they should definitely be landed. It definitely felt like, honestly, Apperman isn't super familiar with a pick for once, which is weird to say because this is the man that pulled out Uric and looked really good on it. So unfamiliar territory for me there when I cast over Apperman there. But credit where it's worth. Cog has just come into a realm of their own. Mujin coming up as well. They really worked. They heavily accelerated, put a lot of effort into Cog, and it wasn't in vain. Cog played around this match. We're going to talk about him so much in these team fights. He was a critical member for the side of V3 winning this game because he carried a lot of fights.
Actually, I think it's worth actually maybe go, because we've got a bit of time, because of course it's our last game of the day. Maybe it's worth going on a tangent of, remember where Cog was last year? He was on the Rascal Jester lineup for that 2020. Spring, they did pretty well. Spring they did pretty well. Summer was a difficult experience for everyone involved, let's be honest. How big is it that Cog's managed to actually kind of unlock their potential a bit? Because we knew him as like the kooky Kennen player who occasionally did some fun top lane things, but now he actually seems like one of the premier top laners in this region. Sam, do you have any particular opinions on this guy coming into this V3 lineup?
I think he's really come alive here, partly because he's been given more resources and actually doing really well with the resources he's being given. In the past, last year, the Jesters, when he was on that roster, were playing around Vivid and Art. And that made a lot of sense because
they're very good players.
Judo, and Art was really quite phenomenal, especially when he had a lead. And it made sense at that point. Like, look, Cog, you're good enough to play by yourself. We'll leave you alone. We've got to focus on bot side. But that left him in a bit of a difficult position. And then you hit Summer and the roster's kind of falling apart. He doesn't quite get the same map control that you need if you want to push your advantage as a top laner. Because playing the side lane is as much about playing the early lane well to get yourself ahead, and then being able to manipulate waves and lane state. And to do that, you need to know what's going on in the enemy jungle. You need to know where other players are so you can know how far and when you can push up. And I think V3 have been doing that very well.
Okay, so, I mean, let's go on to that point then, I suppose, in terms of, well, okay, manipulating the map and then using your resources well. If we're hitting on those two things, Cog and the rest of V3 in this game were very patient about how they played these fights. They ended up being patient with their engages and being potent with them. They managed to hit at the right points, much like we saw Reiner earlier in the day, finding the 4-man Magnet Storm to really turn the game away from Crest Gaming Act. Here against the Hawks, it really seemed like there was no way to really stop them from finding the targets they wanted to, and a lot of that did come from, of course, Cog popping off on this Camille. Lexi, how did these fights really stand out to you in terms of their pacing, particularly in how they started off?
I think the best one to think about pacing-wise is actually the first fight, the first really true fight where we see Cog flash in on this Gragas, go for the knock-up onto Cog. It's like, okay, we're going to throw a lot at Cog because if he's... Apperman, yes, Apperman does all of this on Gragas, goes in on Cog, and it's like, okay, we're going to see a huge engage. He flashed out. Now the side of V3 are engaging on us. Oh god, now the Hero's Entrance coming in. We need to split. And that's where the problem came. V3 were so calculated. They're like, we just don't want to fight them all as a 5v5. There's no reason for us to. We're going to split them up. A Hero's Entrance, great tool at doing that. And if they don't have that up, they can Camilo. They didn't have to. Hero's Entrance did the job they needed to. Reiner was able to get right into the back line, immediately getting a 3-man stun, may I just say. Well, Reiner, you just always are trying to do anything. Either it's on Set, who he actually has played more than Ace. I just think Ace is a Set player of the team, but actually no, it's Reiner.
The Reiner support last year, the Set support, really good.
he's unreal on these kind of engaged champions. He's found the opportunity with Rel, honestly split the team up arguably on their own with that hero's entrance, and then they were able to come in and engage. They got the 3 over on the top side of that brush, and then because Camille is Camille, jump in, get another one, and that was a 4 for 0, getting the dragon, and the tempo from that fight perfectly illustrates why V3 were able to just keep doing these fights over and over again.
And I think there's something to be said, just quickly moving on a little bit to the kind of the next caveat at this point is that, so we haven't talked about the draft yet. I think it's very important to frame it in the discussion of how these fights unfold in terms of when V3 were in the fight, how did the Hawks deal with it? What was the Rakan able to do? Okay, this Gragas, can they deal with the Camille? The Gragas was, of course, picked early as a flex pick, and it ended up going towards that top lane to allow for the Rakan to be in that support role. We pulled up some stats and said, actually, Rakan doesn't do well versus Camille, even though this Rakan is the last pick. They're picking that knowingly in. Corporal is a very proficient player of this Rakan, but it also seemed like Appman was not doing as well in the match as you're saying in topside. Now my question to both of you is, this swap could have been the Gragas down to bot lane and have something a bit more preferable in topside, which kind of works out for the team a bit more. Was this the Hawks misusing their flex pick potential?
I personally don't hate it. Because they wanted to play around the bot side, and Gragas is probably the best weak side top laner in the meta right now. There's not a lot of matchups that really punish Gragas hard enough. Even then, Gragas farms easier at the minute, and he's still a bit more like, this is like, there's so many hard matches, and plus basically he gets to play W every 3 seconds and heal up for free with his passive. It's quite easy for him to at least be useful, and Explosive Cask into Camille is very useful.
Simon was bad also, so
and, yeah, exactly. So you knock her out of what you knock her out of a hexagon. So it makes some sense. The Rakan in isolation to Camille kind of is rough because you can knock him in place, and his mobility, which is so much of his strength and slipperiness about staying alive, is very neutered if Camille can hold him in place. But even so, I don't mind it, but you've got to make the engages stick, and they really didn't.
They really didn't make those engages stick. So then you have to think, okay, how do we then, if we're losing this first dragon fight, the third dragon, as Lexi so expertly went over in terms of the pacing of it and how the engages happened, how do you go forward from that? A lot of the time you go towards a bit more unorthodox, right? You have a Gragas flash body slam and cut into the cast. That's something you can flank with. The grand entrance, of course, from Rakan alongside the quickness allow him to do similar things. But to flank, you need vision. And it turned out that V3 are really good at doing this, and we've known this since Reiner was one of the best clearer of wards across all minor regions last year, in fact, in 2020. It seemed like every time the Hawks were trying to go for any kind of unorthodox play, they were just completely seen. Lexi, how did V3 really manage to stymie this, and what kind of problems did this cause for the Hawks, considering that they couldn't really do that orthodox engage thing in the first place? That's why they were trying to go for the flanks, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to actually also cover the pick and ban phase very briefly in my point as well. So the vision was super important because every single time that they wanted to do anything over on the side of the Hawks where they try and find a sneaky engage, who's really meant to be doing that sneaky engage outside of Rakan? Everybody else on the side of the Hawks actually wants to be pretty front to back. Gragas wants to be at the front. Hecarim wants to be at the front. Orianna wants to be at the mid. Kai'Sa wants to be at the back to then the very front. Rakan kind of wants to dance a little bit, and the Rakan, honestly, I appreciate what you're saying, Initialize, but I strongly disagree with you. I think the Gragas should have been the perennial lamb, as I said on broadcast. Throw him in the bot lane and get a favorable matchup for Appman in the top lane. But I agree with you. He is a safe farming top laner, and it should have gone, honestly, a fair bit better for Appman in this top side. But V3's vision control was just so good. And the disrespect, as I said on broadcast, when we went into the replay around the Baron fight, was just unacceptable from the Hawks. They shouldn't be making mistakes. I understand you need to try and find the play, but the moment you are using your trinket, you scan and you're like, there's Ace. Probably should go around the other side of the red buff as a 5 unit, have Appman at the front or Tussle at the front. We know they're doing this Baron. Like, we don't know what the health is, but unless any of our blue trinkets are up, we won't know. They didn't play around it. They just face tanked them and died to basically Ace and Reiner. The fact that the rest of the team were able to collapse so easily is just what they could do. Any comp should really be able to do that. But the fact that the Hawks did that is just honestly disappointing.
Yeah, so a bit of disrespect, and then maybe a little bit of panic too, knowing that the game was slowly slipping away from them.
Yeah.
And it really slipped away, particularly at the Mountain Soul fight. So we had this 26-minute fight around Baron, which V3 took handily. I think a lot of that's partly due to the follow-up available from this team, able to fly over walls with a lot of their different members. And then this Mountain Soul fight, I mean, this kind of was this was obviously very much out of hand. The gold was very much out of hand there, but it was another great fight for V3, right, Sam?
Yeah, like, this is the first fight in a while, in a serious while, where Corporal can actually find a flank off Vision. He gets into the backline. It's a shockwave on top. It looks brilliant, but the wallets are too much, and Cog gets to dive into the backline and clean up the fights. And this is the problem. By this point, your gold lead is too big to be able to use the opportunities you did have. The engages needed to stick earlier. And, like, when you're around fights where V3 is set up around Dragon, you try to do Baron in trade, and still they manage to out-vision control you on both sides of the map at once. It's problematic, and so by the time they finally find a fight where they are not on vision for these flanks, it's too late. The gold lead is far, far too large on far too many carries, and your shockwave doesn't do enough.
Shockwave doesn't do enough, and I know that, I mean, there was definitely something to say, okay, they came into this game relatively even, and then the fights went against them. Maybe that's comp, maybe that's execution, maybe it's a whole bunch of things. What it means is that, of course, wrapping up the end of this week, V3 retain their position in second place. The Hawks now down in that bottom spot alongside Burning Core. Had a lot of different moves from this middle of the pack kind of thing we've seen all the way since week 1, where we saw like one team at the top, one team at the bottom, everyone else in the middle. It seems like we're finally starting to get a little bit of that sifting away from each other, and that means that Super Week, when we will have 4 games back-to-back in 2 days for each team, will be oh so important for these teams to find their final standings, because this will be a tight race for playoffs. We knew that. It happened all the time in 2020. In 2021, it seems to be going along the same storyline. With all that said, that is our last game of the day, and we will, of course, be now heading off to our break so we can wait for that Super Week to roll around. So, from Initialize, from Lexi, and from myself, we bid you good day, good night, good morning, wherever you're watching this from at whatever time. Either way, we hope to see you next time. Goodbye and see you then.